Today we'll have a special show that focuses on India's worst hit COVID states. And we are starting first by giving you the big picture of the numbers. India's COVID crisis numbers. Active cases 28,82,204. Cases in the last 24 hours 3,23,144. A slight dip since yesterday. Deaths in the last 24 hours 2,771. But as I said, our focus will be on India's 4 worst COVID hit states. And we are starting with the national capital. And these troubling images that are coming in from the national capital at one of the country's top hospitals, the Apollo Hospital, nurses and doctors have come under attack today. Families of a patient who died assaulted the healthcare staff over the non-availability of ICU beds. The families vandalized the hospital property. Apollo Hospital says they received a lady in critical condition on the 27th of April. Immediate medical attention was given by the team, but given the shortage of beds, the family was advised to shift the patient to another facility with available beds. Unfortunately, the patient died at around 8 a.m. The angry family members then went on the rampage, and those are the disturbing images that you are seeing today. And that, in a sense, reflects the collapse, in a way, some would say, of the medical system itself in the national capital, where people are struggling for a bed, for remdesivir supplies, indeed for just some kind of health care. The national capital, one of the 4 worst affected states, is where we are starting the journey. And I want to go straight, therefore, to Dr. Anupam Sibal, the Group Medical Director at Apollo Hospitals, for his reactions to what we've seen. Dr. Sibal, shameful scenes that we've seen, hospital staff being targeted. I know these are trying times for all of you, but for you also, this must have come as a rude shock after all these years in the medical profession to see doctors and staff being assaulted in this manner.
Thank you, Rajdeep, for this invitation. I want to start off by expressing heartfelt condolences to the bereaved family. For us as doctors, for us as healthcare professionals, be it nurses, paramedics, or anyone who's in hospital, to lose a patient is something that we do whatever we can to avoid. But listen, it's not really in our power, because if it was, then 724 doctors would not have died because of COVID. What I want to place on record here, Rajdeep, is that it is day 462 of the pandemic in India. And the healthcare professionals have fought, and they have fought hard. And that is why you saw in the first wave how well we did. And we are doing our very best in the second wave to save as many lives as we can, to help as many people as we can. We're all working 14, 16, 18 hours a day. There is no Sunday for us. We don't know what a break is. Our phone rings constantly, and constantly we are under the stress of trying to do our best under the pressure, under the stress that we live in. And Rajdeep, you will understand this, because your son's a medical student and he'll be a doctor soon. What does it take to become a doctor? 5.5 hours of grueling 12 to 14 hours?
No, he's already a doctor.
Okay, well then you will know even better, Rajdeep. And then 5.5 years of that, junior residency, 3 years of postgrad, 3 years of super specialty. That is the kind of effort we put in. And we don't expect a thank you, because we chose this life. At the age of 23, we took an oath, a pledge that we will put the interests of our patients above us. We don't expect gratitude, but at least be civil. We do not expect the kind of behavior we saw here.
But Dr. Sibal, what will you... No, I take your point, but what... No, I take your point, but Dr. Sibal, what will you tell a family who comes to a hospital and then is turned away? Many families are ringing in saying they're going to government hospitals, they're going to private hospitals, no beds available, and then they are turned away. In this instance, emergency care was given, but there was no bed, they are turned away. Now, when people are getting desperate, and the capital, there's no coordination, it appears at the moment, or very little coordination between the various authorities. So people don't know where to go. They're struggling for oxygen supply, for remdesivir and other medication, or indeed for an ICU bed. An ICU bed today is like gold. So what do you tell those families who are desperate and then turned away?
Absolutely, Rajdeep, I agree with you that the system is under pressure. But we saw this. We saw this in Madrid. We saw this in London. We saw this in Paris. We saw this in New York. We saw this in the most developed countries in the world that have better infrastructure than India has. And we saw the scenes, if you remember, April last year, and you saw the scenes from Britain in December. So the question is that we have suddenly got a very large number of people falling ill, critically ill. The hospital system is stretched. So we do whatever we can to the best of our ability within the constraints of being able to provide the best care. Emergency care is provided, but if someone needs a ventilator and there isn't a ventilator, Rajdeep, how do we create a ventilator? We can do what we can to stabilize the patient, but if someone needs a ventilator and is crashing, then that patient needs a ventilator. And that is something which is sad. It is something that pains every doctor. It pains each one of us who cares for patients. But these are circumstances beyond our control when we do not have what we need at that point in time. Each one of us is working towards increasing infrastructure. The government has enhanced capacity. You know of the challenges that we've had over the last few weeks, and efforts have been made to overcome those challenges. The private sector has enhanced capacity. Training has been enhanced in terms of getting the upskilling that is needed. But then there is just a huge gap that has emerged.
Can I though ask you this? Today the Delhi High Court has come out very strongly against the Delhi government, against the authorities in Delhi for what they see as the collapse of the system. Now, we wanted an Aam Aadmi Party representative, but no one has come on the show, unfortunately. The health minister also chose not to come, so maybe you're the wrong person to ask this, but as someone who's been a medical professional for years, why is the national capital in particular so badly affected? I mean, it's much easier to get a bed in many other parts of the country compared to the national capital. If the capital's infrastructure collapses, what's the message that goes out to the world at large?
So Rajdeep, the first thing I would say is I don't think we should use the word collapse. I think there is still some remarkable care that is being delivered. What we are seeing is a system under tremendous amount of stress. But it hasn't collapsed, because if it had collapsed, we won't be saving the number of lives we are saving each day. Now, the pressure in Delhi is intense for the simple reason that Delhi sees a lot of patients from outside Delhi. You don't see that in many other states. So what we see is patients from Uttar Pradesh, we see patients from Haryana, we see patients from Uttarakhand, from Punjab, from Jammu and Kashmir, from Madhya Pradesh, from Rajasthan coming in for tertiary care, for the kind of care that is available only in a handful of hospitals, whether it's advanced ventilation, whether it's ECMO. And that is why the pressure is more than you will see in other metros. And it's a reality, and it's been the case for years, for decades. Delhi is the healthcare capital, for want of a better word, in terms of tertiary quaternary care. So there is a lot of pressure, and we are seeing that now.
One final question though. We knew, as you say, that this pressure has existed for years. Should COVID 1.0 not have been a wake-up call for us to enhance that infrastructure? Why is it that we are scrambling around at the moment? Is it just the sheer weight of numbers this time? Or is there something fundamentally wrong with the health infrastructure as has been created at the moment, that it's just not expanded fast enough? I mean, who is going to be held accountable? As we said, violence unacceptable. But when patients are being turned away from hospital after hospital, who will be held accountable when there isn't enough oxygen supply?
So Rajdeep, 2 points. I think what we are seeing is the weight of the number of patients is really what is putting the pressure that we are seeing. It just happened very quickly. Now, if this was spread over 4 or 6 weeks, we wouldn't have seen the kind of scenes that we are seeing here. We all acknowledge the National Health Policy talks about increasing healthcare spend to 2.5% of the GDP from the government. We have to invest more in health, and I think this goes back to maybe 7 decades. And I think we should have spent more. Well, the good thing is that at least there's a recognition now, and the National Health Policy has actually given a figure of 2.5% of the government spend on the GDP on healthcare, and we hope that money will help a better infrastructure, and I hope that we would have learned in terms of better surveillance, better public health, better monitoring, better diagnostics, so that, God forbid, another wave of whether it's COVID or whether it's another virus or any other such medical or health calamity, we are able to brace ourselves and face it better.
I just have 30 seconds with you, Anupam. The charge, Dr. Sibal, against private hospitals in particular is that you're profiteering, that you don't really care about the Aam Aadmi. What will you tell them? That in Delhi, everyone is a Khas Aadmi. Only VVIPs get admission into private hospitals. The Aam Aadmi loses out. What will you say very quickly?
Well, I think the narrative really has to look at the ground realities. 70% of healthcare in this country is provided by private hospitals, nursing homes, doctors, and the reliance of in terms of high-end quality care has been historically with the private sector. When the term of profiteering is used, perhaps we need to look at health economics, and we really need to look at what does it cost to actually do a bypass surgery, what is the comparative cost anywhere else, what is the comparative cost in the government sector and the private sector. And to the best of my knowledge, that data has never really been analyzed. So when we don't have that, to use the term profiteering, I think is very unfair. We have to look at what the quality of care that is provided is. Is it comparable to the best in the West? And is it not at 1/5 or 1/10 of what is it in the best centers in the US or in Europe? So I think we have to look at the larger picture, and only then can we actually decide on what is the true value of the care that is delivered.
Okay. But you're giving me an assurance that if you have a bed and then someone comes desperately looking for one, you will not turn them away, whether that is a Khas Aadmi or an Aam Aadmi, right?
Absolutely, Rajdeep. We will do whatever we can with whatever equipment that we have at that point in time to stabilize the patient, make the patient better. That is a promise that each one of us in the medical community has always lived up to, and we will live up to. And let me again end with this, that please do not forget that everyone who became a doctor took a pledge, and we live by that oath, and we live by that oath every single day.
Dr. Sibal, I appreciate your joining us on a day which is a sad day in many ways, that we've had to see this kind of violence at the Apollo Hospital. Thank you very much, though, for joining me. Let me come from there to Maharashtra, which remains the country's epicenter in COVID 2.0. Almost 40% of the cases still coming from there. And now the battle is shifting from urban Maharashtra, from Mumbai, Pune to rural parts. And this is the shocker that's coming from there. In Beed, for example, 22 bodies being carried in one ambulance to conduct the last rites of patients under COVID protocol because there weren't enough ambulances available in Beed district. This in a way reflects, as I said, the tragedy perhaps of rural parts of the country where, remember, the virus is spreading and where more challenges could come. That incident has sparked serious outrage, forcing the local administration to rush a team to look into the matter. And joining us now is the Health Minister of Maharashtra, Mr. Rajesh Tope. Mr. Tope, Maharashtra remains the country's COVID epicenter. Maximum cases still coming out of Maharashtra. And now the worry is it's spreading beyond Mumbai into the rural parts. 30% positivity, Vidarbha, Marathwada, and here the infrastructure is not so good. So does that worry you, Mr. Tope, now that the challenge is going to become even more difficult in Maharashtra in the weeks ahead?
Yes, of course, it is a worry for government and especially for the health department. The spread as it is seen nowadays in the rural part as compared to the metros. Metros are now day to day declining. From my the figures which are coming on daily, but in the rural part there is a more spread which is seen, and the infrastructure is a challenge. But of course, we are in the district hospital, which we call as a district health district COVID hospital, DCH. So there we are ramping up with the beds. We are ramping up with all the facilities which are required for the beds, like the doctors, the medicine facilities, the oxygen requirement, and even in the taluka places, in the block places also, there are rural hospitals which is a part of our health infrastructure in our public health department. So in rural hospital also, we are converting those rural hospitals into COVID hospitals and also increasing the number of beds.
So you're saying you're ramping it up. So you're saying you're ramping. No, Mr. Tope. Mr. Tope, you're saying you're ramping it up, but from your home region of Marathwada and Bid, we've had a story today of 20 bodies dumped into one ambulance. Everywhere I am getting reports of remdesivir shortage in Maharashtra. In the rural parts, particularly, the shortage is even greater because there is even more black marketing and hoarding taking place. I'm just trying to understand, if 30% positivity rate is there in parts of rural Maharashtra, in Vidarbha, Marathwada, how quickly will you be able to ramp up to meet this challenge?
No, now the bed management, we have really made it stable. It's not like the patients are not getting beds at all. We are, yes, it is a position of hand to mouth, but it doesn't mean that they are not getting beds. They are getting beds. We have increased a lot of oxygen beds. We have increased ICU. Even the private players, we have asked to fall in line with the government. We have also requisite more than 80% of the beds of the private hospital, and the remdesivir shortage, as you know, Rajdeep ji, that this is totally it is the production of the 7 companies which actually helps in increasing the numbers of remdesivir in the respective states, because now the total control is in the hands of Government of India, especially the pharma department, and now they are allocating how much to give to which of the states. They had formulated this by having by seeing some of the indicators, like how many active patients are there, what is the how many are the critical patients, and all. So seeing that, they allocate remdesivir. So it is not, the demand is still 60,000 per day, and we are getting 40,000, even though they have increased our quota by like 10,000 a day. Previously we were having just 26,000 in the last week. Now they have made it 35 to 40,000 a day, but still it is a shortage, because our demand is 50 to 60,000 actually a day.
Mr. Tupe, I want to understand this. No, you are being very honest with me, saying that you are living hand to mouth literally, whether it is coming to oxygen supplies, ICU beds or remdesivir. I want to understand very clearly. Who do you hold responsible? Is the Maharashtra government not accountable? Did you not prepare for this kind of surge? Do you believe that the surge was way beyond your expectations? Or are you blaming the center, which is distributing remdesivir, for example, according to a quota system? Who are you blaming? Your lack of preparation or the center system of this quota Raj which they have started?
No, there are 2 challenges at present which government is facing, or Maharashtra is facing. That is, one is the medicine challenge, second is the oxygen challenge. I think the bed challenge is not a challenge. I will not say that there is no bed available in Maharashtra in any of the district. Beds are available. I am very clear about that. Yes, it is not that we are too much of surplus in beds, but yes, it is a hand to mouth situation, but beds are available. Especially to the choiced hospitals, the beds availability is a challenge for every patient. For the choiced hospitals, but not for if he goes to a alternate hospital, yes, he can get a bed of oxygen as well as ICU. But of course, the challenge is of oxygen and of remdesivir. So these are the quotas which Government of India allocates, and I will not blame them. Whatever possible they are doing from their side. But it is really a challenge. There is no night which is gone. I mean to say,
no, but there seems to be a lack of coordination,
frightening
sir.
for
So let's be honest. There seems to, Mr. Tope, sir, I'm not trying to minimize the challenge, but there seems to be a lack of coordination between Mumbai and Delhi, whether it is to do with remdesivir supplies or oxygen supplies. Last week, Uddhav Thackeray, the Chief Minister, had claimed that oxygen supplies were running short. This week, we are told about remdesivir supplies. There seems to be a lack of coordination. Why is it that this is particularly so about Maharashtra? Why can't you have a better working relationship between Delhi and Mumbai?
No, I am very clear that I have always been talking to Honorable Harshavardhanji, the Public Health Minister for Government of India, and also the Secretary, Mr. Rajesh Bhushan. They are very kind to us. Like they are gentlemen people, but still the demand is increasing, and we are not able to. They are not able to cater to our demands. That is, but very clear. But because on paper. Right. We have always been mentioning that we need 60,000, 70,000 vials in a day, but they are not able to provide us that quota because might be the production of the respective 7 companies might be not to the mark which can suffice the demand of the whole country. Right. Might that be the reason? Or secondly, yes, oxygen also we require approximately 500 metric tons. Now they are providing 350 metric tons. The turnaround time is a challenge because now even Mr. Modi ji has allowed for airlifting of the empty containers, tankers, and then the tankers can come with the oxygen by road. So these some of the easing of the systems has been done by Government of India. But still the challenges remains ahead. Even the vaccination is a big challenge. Vaccination, of course, we are from the day one, we are continuously in demand that we need 8 lakhs vaccines doses per day. We are capable to handle, we are capable to administer these many doses. We have the resources, that much number of centers for vaccination, that much number of human resources to vaccinate. But in number of parts, there's a vaccine shortage. And but
no, sir, you are saying 8 lakhs a day, but do you have the vaccinations to actually do 8 lakhs a day from the 1st of May? Will you be able to vaccinate all? There seems to be a vaccine shortage.
Absolutely. Absolutely, we can do 8 lakhs a day. Since last 2-3 weeks, we have written letters, n number of letters to Government of India that we can vaccinate 8 lakhs a day. Please ensure that at least you supply vaccination of the entire week, so that in Pan Maharashtra we can supply them, because if a vaccination is given in a destination of Pune or Mumbai, it is in the one part of Maharashtra. To supply this vaccination to the total east of Maharashtra, it takes at least a day or two. So if a total quantum of a week is provided at one go, so that will ensure that we can ensure to the Government of India that we can use the optimum capacity of the resources and the centers which are spread in the Pan Maharashtra. So that is our argument. So I think if the vaccines are provided in large numbers as per our demand, we can increase the capacity.
Right. Yeah. But the sense I get, because today also former Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis has claimed that Maharashtra has reduced the RT-PCR tests because you want to show the numbers to be lower. The sense I get, I come back to it, there is a general sense of politics, too much of politics, and a lack of coordination. Lack of preparedness first and a lack of coordination. And rather than play this blame game, the time has come to get your act together, whether it's vaccine shortage, whether it's testing, whether it's remdesivir supplies, whether it's oxygen supplies. All of this needs better coordination. Do we need otherwise the numbers will continue to spiral?
Rajdeep ji, I am very clear that I had always been talking to even the opposition leader. He is very good friend of mine, Mr. Devendra Fadnavis, even to Praveen Darekar, even Mr. Gadkari. I had always been speaking one-to-one that if you can arrange one-to-one meeting with the Honorable Harshavardhan ji, and we can increase the vaccination or the remdesivir or like oxygen demand also. These things we can go directly to Delhi, sit across the table and decide show on paper that this is our demand, and so you should please increase the oxygen demand as well as the seeing to the oxygen demand, increase the oxygen quantum, even remdesivir quantum, or the
sir,
whatever like requirement that comes from Government of India. So there is a there is coordination from our side. It is not at all, we don't want to blame anyone. Never I have said anything against Government of India that they are not helping us. It is never I have said in any of the interview. At present also I am just keeping my stand that this much I am requiring, and the quantum is fixed by Government of India. That is what I am saying, and there is no blame game, there is no politics, to be very clear. And there is a proper coordination. Only thing is I don't know what are the difficulties of Government of India for not providing to the requirement of our state. That is one point. And the preparedness point of view, I am very clear that yes, we have stopped all the developmental works. We have deviated all our funds exclusively for COVID work. So there is no compromise on health side of for our people of Maharashtra. We had never compromised, and we will never compromise at all. We had given ample funds to the district level. We have given delegated the authority to the collector. Even the purchases are being done by collector. The rates are being fixed at the state level. They can directly take any of the decisions. So delegation of authority, then funds provision has been very, very clear on our government side. So preparedness, there should not be any problem. Only thing, yes, the surge in the second wave is really very much high as compared which we.
So that has caught you off guard. Okay, I will ask you one final question.
Little bit.
Are you going to extend the lockdown beyond the 1st of May? There's a lot of concern. Are you going to extend the lockdown? Do you have any choice but to extend this lockdown?
Lockdown is always from the perspective of like if we are having shortages of beds, medicines and doctors and all. So if there is a gap of 20%, 10 to 20%, if we are reaching to the overwhelming of the hospital, then we go for lockdown. Such is the position when any state, any country goes for lockdown. That is a thumb rule which is being used in the pan world, I mean to say, in the pan globe, across the globe. So if we find a situation at the end of May, at the end of April, and if we think that yes, extension is required, so on that day we will judge, we will take a proper judgment. As now you can see that yesterday the today's numbers are 50,000, which were 70,000 2 days before. So if the number starts decreasing, then there will be,
that's because you are testing less,
no chance of extension. But yes, no, it's not a testing at all. We are testing 2 lakhs per day. We are testing even in the per million parameter, which is always being observed in the COVID parameters. So per million testing also, Maharashtra is quite doing quite a high number of testings. RT-PCR, we are 70% RT-PCR, 30% only antigen. UP and all, they are exactly vice versa. They are just doing 90% antigen and 10% RT-PCR.
Okay, so Maharashtra there is defending its position even as it remains the state with the highest number of COVID cases. Number 2 in terms of COVID cases is Uttar Pradesh, and that's the big worry because it's India's most populous state. Now, Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath at one level seems to be in denial because he says there's no oxygen shortage in Uttar Pradesh. Well, our correspondent Ashutosh went to Meerut, where in one hospital alone, 8 people allegedly died because of a shortage of oxygen. Here's his ground report.
The second wave of COVID-19 is sweeping India, and the focus is currently on the big cities. Away from the flashbulbs in the smaller cities, the disaster appears as serious. This is the KMC hospital in Meerut. Manoj's wife is admitted here and needs oxygen. The hospital authorities have asked him to arrange the oxygen on his own.
पहले नहीं बताया कि हाँ भाई हमारा ये इंतजाम है, ये होने वाला है, नहीं होने वाला है।
कौन भर्ती है आपके यहाँ से?
अभी मेरी वाइफ है,
अभी है
मेरी वाइफ है, 20 तारीख से एडमिट है, 20 तारीख से एडमिट मेरी वाइफ है। और सुबह कह रहे हैं हाँ भैया अनाउंसमेंट करके कि हाँ भैया अपना इंतजाम कर लो, कहाँ से कर ले भैया, कहाँ से भागे, क्या करें, क्या करें, सगले में घूम ले भैया, मरने वाली है, एक कोई मिनट ठहरी बस ओपडी, बस कोई मिनट जा रही है, हाथ जोड़ता फिर रहा हूँ, कोई मेरे 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 कोई बचा लो, 20 मिनट की जिंदगी दे दो कोई। 20 मिनट की जिंदगी दे दो कोई।
here in Meerut, and here at KMC Hospital, a banner has been in fact put out by the hospital management, which says all the relatives of those who are admitted here are being informed that oxygen availability is solely depend on the district administration, Meerut. Whatever supplies they are getting from the administration will be provided to the patients. In case of any untoward incidents, the hospital management is completely clueless. They do not know what to say.
Families of admitted patients are angry at being left to fend for themselves.
अगर ये खत्म हो जाता तो हमारे पास फिल कराने के लिए कोई ऑप्शन नहीं है, फिर हम क्या करेंगे, फिल कराएंगे या
हमारे पास सिलेंडर नहीं है, आप अपना अरेंज करवा के ला सकते हो तो लाइए।
Even as we listen to their woes, an oxygen cylinder rolls in. It is taken to the ward. One patient's family claims they paid 70,000 rupees to get an oxygen cylinder.
गवर्नमेंट को कोई तो एक्शन लेना चाहिए कि नहीं लेना चाहिए? इतनी कालाबाजारी हो रही है, 70,000 का ऑक्सीजन सिलेंडर मिल रहा है 20 लीटर का, क्या कर रही है गवर्नमेंट?
The hospital administration says they have been getting oxygen supplies from the administration, but the demand has shot through the roof. They admit that 8 people have lost their lives till now due to the oxygen shortage in the hospital.
परिस्थिति ये है, हमें ऑक्सीजन प्रशासन से मिल रही है, लेकिन समस्या ये है कि जितनी रिक्वायरमेंट है मरीज की उतनी मात्रा में ऑक्सीजन नहीं मिल रही है, एक, और दूसरा सही समय पर नहीं मिल पा रही है।
48 घंटों में ऑक्सीजन की कमी से कितने लोगों की डेथ हुई है?
8 के आसपास।
लिक्विड ऑक्सीजन की अवेलेबिलिटी पूरे हिंदुस्तान में कम है, केवल मेरठ की बात नहीं है। दिल्ली गंगाराम में भी आपने सुना होगा, वहाँ पे कुछ इसकी प्रॉब्लम आई थी। तो हमारी पूरी कोशिश है कि इस तरह की क्राइसिस ना आए, और क्राइसिस हम मैनेज करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं पूरी तरीके से।
At another private hospital in Meerut, the situation is the same. This facility claims they are not getting oxygen supplies as well. It advises patients on oxygen support to search for another center. With Ashutosh Mishra and Sanjay Kumar, Bureau Report, India Today.
So let me come to specifics. Oxygen supply. When the Chief Minister was asked whether there is any oxygen shortage, he said there is no oxygen shortage. Our reporters have reported from Meerut where there is widespread shortage. Doctors have come on camera, patients, hospitals have come on camera. 8 people have died in one hospital allegedly because of oxygen shortage, and the Chief Minister says there is no oxygen shortage, and anyone who says so will be prosecuted. I mean, what is the message? Why not accept that there is a shortage of oxygen?
I do not know exactly what the Chief Minister said in that many words as what you are saying, but because the virus has mutated in so many forms, it is infecting the patient at least 1 week later after being tested negative, and because being tested negative and his lungs get infected after a week, he immediately requires oxygen. So the amount of patients who are going in for oxygen not only in UP but all over India and all over the world are using oxygen as a means to control themselves, to balance themselves out and increase, and so there's a acute shortage of oxygen right over across the world. As you know, all over India we only have about 8,000 metric
so why
tons
not
which are
accept it?
normally
Sir, I'm not,
produced
sir, I'm
as
not,
oxygen.
so why not accept it? No, Mr. Minister, I am saying why not just accept it that there is an oxygen shortage, accept there is a shortage of beds. You have such when you say there is no shortage, then people, feel, look at the reality, which is very different, sir.
No, Rajdeep, again, I'll try and rephrase my word. What I said was that I do not know what the Chief Minister said and which way he said it and where it was quoted. But I also said there is an acute shortage in the entire country, in the entire world. We manufacture about 8,000 metric tons, out of which 1,700 tons goes into industrial use, and normally the balance is used in medical oxygen, which is all over, everywhere it is like that. When you have a virus which is mutated in so many forms and it is affecting your lungs immediately, you require oxygen. So as the percentage of patients have gone up by over 30%, similarly the use of oxygen, the requirement of oxygen has also gone up at the same rate. So when it's gone up at the same rate, you do not have that much oxygen available to you. So oxygen has been earmarked, or even we've been told by the central government that UP and other states have to get oxygen from this plant, from this plant, from this plant. So we are getting all our oxygen from those plants. And whatever is generated within UP and within small factories, we are taking that. So we fulfill all our oxygen requirements at the moment. And the number of beds which you said, we do have a shortage of beds because we never experienced that there will be such a shortage of beds for such a big virus. So we are adjusting to that also. Temporary sheds are being made, temporary hospitals are being made all over.
So how do you respond?
Even UP is making a temporary hospital. Yes.
Right. How do you respond? Pardon? How do you respond, Mr. Minister, to those who say how do you respond to those who say, did the government do enough over the last 8 months after the first wave? Did you get complacent? Chief Minister was campaigning all over Bengal. There was a general sense that life was back to normal. Y'all used to hold daily meetings. Those daily meetings stopped. Was there a sense that in February, March this year of ki Corona ki jo jang thi hum jeet gaye hain, and that is where you lowered your guard? How many ventilators did you add? How many beds did you add? Could you have done more to add to the hospital infrastructure?
What we learned from 2020 कि जितना भी हमने बेड्स का तैयारी किया था, 1,75,000 plus beds we arranged, and the number of patients, active patients, were much lower because the virus was not so infectious. Every district had ventilators. We provided ventilators, we provided BiPAP machines, we provided HNFC, and we provided cylinders according to the number of patients that were coming in 2020. So the basic infrastructure was still there. Now up to March 3rd, the lowest amount of cases came was 77. And before that it was already coming to a lower side. Now, is it not complacency? I would say that everybody understood that maybe the virus is now coming to an end. So we started our regular medical activities for the rest of the public, for the other diseases, for other people who come with various sort of complaints for their health and all that. Everything started coming back to normal. Now, when everything came back to normal and suddenly you have again a surge of this virus in a new form, so we had to get back everything again onto order. So again we've got back everything. Every district has got its ventilators ready. Every district has got enough amount of beds which are available. All our staff is working round the clock. We've stopped OPD and all that. We are only doing basic emergencies, and we've kept everything on hold, and wherever the cases are coming up, we are looking after them to the best of our ability.
Right. Sir, are you? Are you all telling the country and the world the truth about the number of COVID deaths? Are you telling? Is Uttar Pradesh is being accused of hiding figures when it comes to COVID deaths? You are being accused of not being honest about how many RT-PCR tests you are doing. You are doing too few RT-PCR tests, and the deaths being reported are much lower than actual. Is that true or not?
It's not true. We are doing about 1 lakh RT-PCR tests per day, and the rest is we doing antigen tests, which total up to about 2,26,000, 2,30,000. We've gone up to 39,000 also. This is our regular daily testing system which we do. Number two, the amount of deaths which happen in any medical facility. So that's a fraction for a state with a population of over 20 crores. No, but that is what we've developed over time. When we started in March 2020, we had Then I think you should compare our records with other states all over India. If you are targeting UP especially, then you must compare our testing abilities along with the rest of the country. Because we started with 72 cases, in 2020 when we had only one testing machine, and we've gone up to almost 200 plus, and every district is now having a RT-PCR machine. In another 10 days, you'll see a doubling of this 2,30,000 to something like 4 lakhs we'll be getting it, because we've already placed orders for all our machines also. So every district hospital is going to have a RT-PCR machine. So you must compare our figures along with the rest of the country.
Sir, are you hiding the facts about deaths, sir? Are you hiding? Sure. Are you hiding the facts about deaths, sir? Are the number of people who have died in the last fortnight much more?
Not at all. I'd like to clarify on this issue. Whatever patients are admitted in medical colleges, in government institutions, or in private medical colleges or private hospitals, if a patient dies there, he or she must upload the data on the same day on a government portal. From the government portal, we do a death audit also through different systems. And after the death audit, we know exactly how many people died in our institutions or in private institutions, and that is how we calculate our deaths, and nothing is reported. I think today we reported something like 250 or 257. So nothing is being hidden over there. It is absolutely a transparent system in UP. I can assure you that.
Okay. Can I therefore ask you in conclusion, do you have any regrets? Could you have done something better than what you've done at the moment? As I said, the fact was that till March it appeared that life was returning to normal. The Chief Minister was aggressively campaigning in Bengal, addressing large rallies. In hindsight, do you think that maybe there should have been a greater sense of being on guard all the time?
As personally, if you ask me, I think basically a virus is most probably depends on how our scientists define it, and whether they had anticipated that in previous years, or rather 100 or 150 years ago, whenever you had a virus, when there were very few means of medication, then the virus always came in couple of phases. And even in Africa, we've seen different types of viruses or diseases which has come in different types of phases, despite the vaccination being made. So I think our scientists should have thought of it earlier, that maybe we could have made more provision for our medical facilities. And in this, I'll tell you one thing, that in the March budget, the central budget, 137% more has been earmarked for medical infrastructure, where in every district we are supposed to make not only a BSL-2 lab to test various types of diseases, but also a 100-bed hospital along with it for infectious diseases. So this has already been earmarked in the March 2021-22 budget of the central government. And we'd already start sending a proposal for different sort of things, so that we can get all our things on time. But in the meantime, this infection spread all over again, and so we were caught in the middle.
Let me ask you, sir, in conclusion, what will you tell all those people, whether they are in Meerut struggling for oxygen supplies, or whether they are in Lucknow struggling for a bed, remdesivir? I know people ringing me up and saying we are told we will not get a bed unless we get a letter from the chief medical superintendent. What will you tell those who are saying that even in Varanasi, the Prime Minister's constituency, things are not as good as they should be? What will you tell all of them today, sir?
No, we will tell everybody that we are trying our best to adjust everybody into hospitals wherever possible. What we've done is that we've told all the private big corporate hospitals and the private nursing homes, private hospitals, that you can take in your patients directly instead of going through a system through the CMO. So that we've released, and we don't need to put any control over them. So people are going directly now over there. And the government institutions, the medical colleges, the district hospitals, or whatever little hospitals where we've got everything, all our facilities, that we are monitoring to ensure that proper treatment and proper beds are, when they are vacant, we allot people over there. And more or less we are getting everybody. It does take a time. When you have, say, in Lucknow, you're getting about 5,000 plus patients every day, out of which I think about maybe about 3,500 goes into home isolation. So for that 1,500, 2,000 people who are there, to get them into the institution does take a little bit of time, because we need to get the other people. There's a cycle of 14 days. You have a lot of patients who are already in medical colleges, in hospitals, who are basically not so critical, but they are not moving out of the place because they feel that, and in fact it's happened also, we've confirmed it also, that a chap, when a patient is totally okay, he's still sitting in that bed, and he gets another person to come and sit on his bed, so that when he moves out, another person comes in and very easily sort of gets in. So to check that, we've made a discharge policy, we've made a doctor's team to ensure that those people who are already 10 days over and who are negative, and they don't have any other problem, they should be shifted back to home isolation for another week, and so that we can get all the critical care patients, the critically ill people, into these institutions to give them the best of whatever is possible.
That was UP's Health Minister, Mr. Jai Pratap Singh, and I sometimes wonder whether our politicians actually need to get on the ground rather than sitting in their air-conditioned bhavans. Maybe that's where they'll see the reality.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.